Good morning, Luis here. In the previous video, we concluded the session on DNS, and today I bring you the video for DHCP. Now, DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. For every computer to be able to partake in a TCP IP environment or on a network, that system needs to have an IP address. Now, you can manually assign an IP address to a computer. If you have about 2 or 3 or 5 computers, this is easy to handle. But when the situation happens that you have about 100 or 50 computers, then IP configuration becomes a problem. One, you are going to miss out some of the numbers, and then you also have to keep a very huge documentation of your IP configuration. Now, dynamic host configuration is a client-server protocol that automatically provides an internet protocol host with its IP address and other related configuration information, such as the subnet mask and default gateway. So it's not just an IP address that the DHCP server gives you. It gives you other information that allows your network experience to be perfect, such as the subnet mask that comes with the class of IP address that your system is going to use. You can also provide such information as the default gateway, which probably will be the IP address of your router that your computers on the network will use to be able to access remote hosts. Then you can also configure those options such as DNS information so that you don't have to manually assign DNS addresses to your clients when they need to connect to the network. Windows Server 2012 includes the DHCP server service, which is an optional networking component. All Windows-based clients include DHCP client as part of TCP. So every client operating system is DHCP enabled. Every Windows client is DHCP enabled. When we say a system is DHCP enabled, what does it mean? Let me show you something here on my Network and Sharing Center here. When I right-click the network icon and I go to Network and Sharing Center, when I click on this system here, connections, I have a network connection, and then when I go to details here, you notice that it says DHCP enabled, yes. So my system is obtaining an IP address from a DHCP server. So every system is DHCP enabled, and to allow the system to obtain IP address from a DHCP server, then you need to make sure that the client system is set to obtain an IP address automatically by going to the properties of the connection and then selecting Internet Protocol version 4 and then going to properties. When you come here, you notice that the option here is obtain an IP address automatically. So it means that my client system is DHCP enabled, and so it can receive or obtain an IP address from a DHCP server automatically. The DNS option is also set to be automatically configured. So that is how DHCP and clients are supposed to be configured. So DHCP allows hosts to obtain required TCP IP configuration information from a DHCP server. So why do we need to use DHCP? Every device on a TCP-based network must have a unique unicast IP address. So just as I said earlier on, for any system to be able to communicate on a network, it needs to have an IP address that uniquely identifies that particular system. Without DHCP, you and I will have to manually configure the IP addresses. And then let's say management decided, okay, we no longer want to use a Class C address because we are expanding our business, and so we are going to use a Class B, which supports a lot of IP addresses or a lot of hosts. Then you will have to manually go computer by computer and then reconfigure their IP address. So this is going to be a lot of trouble for the system administrator. But with DHCP, all this process is going to be automated and managed centrally. The DHCP server maintains a pool of IP addresses. For DHCP to work, we create what we call a scope. A scope basically is the range of IP addresses that you want the DHCP server to be giving out. So Depending on the number of hosts you have on your network or you expect to have on your network, you can create a scope and say the DHCP server should start leasing addresses from maybe 192.168.1.1 to 192.168.1.255, which means it's going to lease up to 254 addresses for the computers on the network. So any computer that connects, the DHCP server is going to give that computer an IP address. DHCP server does this using a four-step process called DORA. Using a four-step process called DORA. Using a four-step process called DORA. The D stands for DHCP discover. The O stands for DHCP offer. And then the R for DHCP request. Then finally, the A stands for DHCP acknowledgement. So what this means is that when a client is first powered on, it broadcasts on the network looking for a DHCP server. Okay, I am around, I need an IP address. If there is a DHCP server, the DHCP server will offer an address. Then the client will request that, okay, I want to use this address. Then the DHCP server will acknowledge that the client can use the IP address. So DHCP offers a pool of addresses called scope. Because the IP addresses are dynamic rather than static, addresses no longer in use are automatically returned to the pool for reallocation. So it doesn't happen that probably someone came to the office, gave him an IP address, he's left, he's no longer coming back. This address will be brought back into the DHCP scope and then it will be reassigned to a different system. Now, the network administrator establishes DHCP servers. So we are going to install a DHCP server and then configure it to maintain configuration information and provide IP configuration to DHCP-enabled clients. DHCP servers store the configuration information in a database. That includes, so we are going to configure a valid TCP configuration parameter, IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, DNS settings. Then it also stores valid IP addresses maintained in a pool for assignment to clients, as well as excluded addresses. Now, besides the issuing of IP addresses that is done for DHCPs, we can also configure something called exclusion. This is what the exclusion means. You know that some systems on our network are supposed to have static IP addresses. For example, our server must have a static IP address. In this case, the IP address that the server is using may fall within the range that we may specify for the DHCP to lease out, which is the scope. When this is the situation, we need to tell the DHCP server that do not give this particular IP address out. So those addresses will be excluded from the DHCP scope. Then we also have reservation. Reservation means that you are ensuring that a particular system always keeps the same IP address or gets the same IP address whenever the person requests for an IP address from a DHCP server. So maybe you want your boss to always maintain the same IP address, or you have a printer or something, then you can decide to do reservation for such a system. So this is the first part of DHCP. Before I go, we also have a lease duration, which is basically the number of days that a system can use an IP address before the IP address is renewed for the person. So in the next video, we'll go through the demonstration and then I'll walk you through how to install DHCP and then do all these configurations that we have talked about. Thank you for watching. Like the video, share it with your friends, and then subscribe to the channel.